party, then Joe Biden is your person. I want you to get on your feet, and I want you to make welcome the next Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden!
All right. I tell you what, man. She's sure something else. Whoa. I better put my hat on, and don't anybody make fun of my hat, or you're going to have a problem with me. That's the Delaware Fighting Blue Hens, and don't make fun of the Blue Hens, all right? We're playing Furman today, and that's another story. Hey, folks, how are you? I tell you what, you know, it's nice to be in a position where I got the freedom fighters behind me. The rest of you guys are okay, but I know where the power is. I know where the power is. Ladies, it was a pleasure meeting you backstage, and I appreciate it very, very much. Look, folks, let me show you a little bumper sticker. I've been campaigning a lot in the so-called battleground states, and you're a battleground state, and we're going to win Virginia this time. We're going to win Virginia this time. But I was another one of those battleground states. And by the way, Cease, thanks for the shirt. I like the shirt. I was a little town in Iowa. Ohio. Spent a lot of time in Ohio. And I get up, and they shut down the streets of this town, and they put a podium in the middle of the street. And it's a beautiful, beautiful town. And I don't know how many people were there, 500, 1,000, 15. It was a big crowd, as far as you could see. And the mayor introduced me, and as he introduced me, he gave me a bumper sticker. He said his brother-in-law, I think, it could have been his brother. By the way, everybody should have two things when they get married. They should have a brother who has a place at the lake or the beach, and they should have a brother-in-law who has a pickup truck. That's all you need. That's all you need in a brother-in-law. Just make sure he brings along his pickup truck. That's all. My family, that's all you need. But at any rate, I forget what he said, his brother or brother-in-law, and he held up, he said, Senator, I want to give you a bumper sticker. He came. You won't be able to see it back there. It says, finish off the middle class. Vote Republican. And folks, that's a little bit what I want to talk to you about today. That's a little bit what I want to talk to you about today. Let's get one thing straight, which no one wants to admit anymore. There's a middle class in this country, which is the backbone of the country, and it exists for one single reason, because of the American labor movement. Were it not for the American labor movement, fighting for health care, fighting for education, fighting for jobs, fighting for safety on the job, all the white-collar workers and blue-collar workers who are non-union, do you think they'd be getting the protection they're getting were it not for the fact that unions are there? And ladies and gentlemen, this president has us engaged in two wars. One of necessity in Afghanistan and one of choice in Iraq. But the war, there's a third war he's been waging that no one has really talked about. There's been a war on labor's house from the day he got elected president. It is an absolute straight-out war on labor's house. And ladies and gentlemen, here's the deal. The folks who are supposed to be the referees, you know, we thought we had a social contract that was built up. Back in the 30s and 40s, all the debates and all the fights and everything, we ended up with a pretty fair deal. There was a labor department supposed to look out for labor. There was a National Labor Relations Board that was supposed to be the guys in the striped suits that were going to call it as they saw it. And what happened as soon as this administration came in office with John McCain's help? All those spots were filled, just like there were on mine safety, with corporate types. All those spots were filled with people not wearing striped suits, but black suits. All those spots were filled. And back 7 years ago, Cease, you may remember my making a speech saying, watch out, here it comes. Everybody said to me, I'm exaggerating a little bit. Do any of you doubt there's any possibility that this administration has anything else in mind, and that John McCain has anything else in mind, than doing in the labor movement? Ladies and gentlemen, there's one single thing. You're the only thing that stands, not an exaggeration. Labor general is the only thing that stands between us and the barbarians at the gate, man. You saw how they turned the keys over to the corporate community. You see what's happening on Wall Street right now. Take a look what's happening on Wall Street. All of a sudden, after 8 years, these guys gone, oh my goodness, there's greed on Wall Street. Yo, where have you been, John McCain? God love you, as my mother would say. Ladies and gentlemen, what has this been all about? Same thing you saw before Sego. The same thing you saw before Boucher got a new bill passed, and we still got more to do on it, mine safety. What happened? What happened was we cut all these regulations. These regulations were all talked about as being bad. The regulations that saved our lives, protected our savings, protected our interest. And now, and I want to read something to you, and I'm not going to take much longer because you've all heard some really good speakers before me. Here's what I want to read to you. This is something John McCain wrote that came out just a week ago. Here's what he said. And now, you know, you saw the meltdown going on Wall Street. And you see the whole world worried about what's going on now in terms of the economy. And you also saw that John McCain now says that he wants to change it. But here's what John McCain wrote in a publication that came out a couple days ago. He wants to do for health care what he did for the banks. Here's what he says, I'm quoting. Opening up the health insurance market to a more vigorous nationwide competition, as we have done the last decade for banking, would prove and provide more choices for innovative products and less burden by the worst of the excessive state regulations. Translated, get rid of the regulations, get rid of the protection, and hang on to your health insurance. Ladies and gentlemen, this guy's not learned anything. I'm not joking. I'm not making this up. So look, we need more than a brave soldier. We need a wise leader. We need somebody on our side. We need somebody who agrees with us. We need somebody who cares about health care. We need somebody who cares about whether or not our kids get educated. We need somebody who cares and cares about our pensions. Ladies and gentlemen, take a look. Take a look. And by the way, you know, he wants the healthcare industry to have new, innovative products. Let me translate that for you. In the mortgage industry, they talked about new, innovative products, subprime mortgages, without anybody looking over anybody's shoulder. All these new, fancy business terms about new product. Well, the new product is bringing down our economy, bringing down the world economy. And we got a lot of work to do to staunch this bleeding and begin to rebuild. So ladies and gentlemen, when these guys tell you how much they care about you, ask them, what are you going to do for me? I guarantee you, Barack Obama ain't taking my shotguns, so don't buy that malarkey. Don't buy that malarkey. They're gonna start peddling that to you. I got two. If he tries to fool with my Beretta, he's got a problem. I like that little over and under. You know, I'm not bad with it. So give me a break. Give me a break. Ladies and gentlemen, look, here's the deal. Take a look. Take a look. Take a look at the facts. Take a look at what's happened the last 8 years. Tell me, as Ronald Reagan said famously more than 2 decades ago, are you better off today than you were 8 years ago? Raise your hand if you are, because I want to meet you. I could walk from here back to Tennessee where we landed our plane, and I wouldn't run into a single person who, as John McCain said, thinks the economy is doing just fine, that the Bush years we've made great progress. I wouldn't run into a single person unless I bumped into John McCain. So folks, don't take your eye off the ball. Don't take your eye off the ball.